Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate all of your involvement and appreciate the success that this seminar and series has had over the last few months. My name is Matthew Frankel, and I see most of you guys just about every month. This week we are very lucky to have Shavar Jeffries join us to provide his insights and thoughts on the professional experience that we've all had to dive into. I'll give you a little bit of background on Shavar, but as we've done in the past, we've kind of let our guests do the majority of the talking. On a personal level, I can speak to Shavar as being one of the most authentic leaders in the state. He has been deeply involved in education and equity issues from the very beginning. He's been a community leader in Newark. He has run for mayor of Newark, and he's currently a partner at Lowenstein Sandler. And I'll let Shavar talk a little bit about his experiences and what he does, and we'll ask some questions to gain some insights into what he's learned along the way professionally. And again, just as a reminder, a big part of this series is to really get individual perspectives on what to expect from the workplace, how to discover our professional passions, and also to just learn anything along the way that Shavar and others can provide as all of us kind of continue to develop our skill sets and our passions. So I guess I'll start the session today just to ask Shavar straight up, talk to us a little bit about what you currently do, and we'll unpack that a little bit, but specifically both as a lawyer and also as an education and advocate and a leader of a major national advocacy organization. So I know that's a bit of a handful, but why don't we start with the legal side. Talk to us not so much yet about how you got to the position that you're in today, but just to give a sense of the pathway and what you're doing, what you actually do as a lawyer as a partner within a very large law firm.
Y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Is everybody okay? I'm a partner at a law firm, and so there's two primary things we have to do as a partner at a firm. One is you have to bring in business. I mean, that's the number one thing you have to do as a partner at a firm. And just imagine that's like sales. The service we provide are legal services to our clients, and so we have to persuade people in the world that they should hire us to be their lawyers. And so that means we have to have an amazing service, right? So that means we have to make sure that whatever their interests are, that we zealously pursue those interests, and we do those in a way that's extraordinary. We cut no corners. The cases that we bring on their behalf, that we investigate all facts, and we do it at the highest level. That means we research the law at the highest level. That means we frame their arguments in a way that gives them the best opportunity to fulfill what their objectives are. So that's number one, and I'm happy to talk more about that. But one of my clients is also an advocacy organization. That's where I do a large amount of advocacy around K-12 education, college and university affordability, completion rates, working with colleges to make sure they're providing support to young people so they can graduate on time and can afford to attend college. Also, we do work in K-12 to make sure that when kids graduate from high school, they have the skills that they need to be able to hit the ground running when they get to college. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we do at the firm. We got to sell our services to clients so that they can hire us. And then we have to, in order to keep our clients and get new clients, we have to represent them at a level of excellence that'll persuade them to stay with us and persuade new people to potentially hire us.
So on that answer alone, there are a couple of things I definitely want to unpack and sort of get your perspective on. In understanding what you do at a law firm and in terms of what your focus points are as a lawyer, a lot of what we try to talk about on a regular basis is not just an understanding of what kind of jobs are out there, but also how people receive or go through the pathway of building up specific passions. You've just defined two, both as a lawyer, but also in heading Democrats for Education Reform, which is the largest, arguably most important reform-minded organization in the country. So there are two pathways there. There's education, there's also the legal side of things. Where did you begin to discover these passions? At what age, and how did you develop those passions?
Yeah, so for me, is anybody from Newark in the house? The Newark is in the house? Essex County, what, East Orange, what were we?
West Orange.
West Orange, okay. Northern Jersey in the house. So for me, it's really connected to my childhood, really. So I'm from the South Ward of Newark. If anybody knows Bergen Street, Bergen and Lyons, Harding Terrace. So Harding Terrace is a little street on Bergen between Lyons and Lehigh. And that's where I grew up. And I grew up like a lot of kids in my neighborhood. My mom was a very young mom. She was only 18 when she gave birth to me, which is very young. You know, I have 2 kids now. I'm going to be 44 in a few months. My kids are 13 and 12. I'm still not really ready to fully raise these children. I'm about to be 44. My mom was 18. And my father was only about 19, so he was very young too. And when I was 18, I'm sure y'all are much more responsible than I was at 18. When I was at 18, you probably didn't want me to watch your dog for more than a week, right? I mean, I was out, enjoying myself, I was young. So anyway, she did the best she could, and she really was amazing with what she tried to do. Unfortunately, I would lose my mom to domestic violence when I was 10 years old. When I was 8, she met a gentleman who became very abusive, and there's still a lot of violence against women in our society, and it's horrible. And so we had a broken lock. She found this locksmith to fix the lock. This locksmith, it's amazing how things can affect your whole life. The locksmith she found would become her boyfriend, right? They would go out, then they would get married. And I still remember when I was about 9, 10 years old, he was asking my mom questions about the phone bill. And y'all are probably too young to remember, back then we had local and long distance. And we used to have something called paper. Y'all probably don't know too much about paper. But there were phone bills that would be that you would get a paper bill every month. Right? Because we ain't had the internet, we ain't have any of that. And I still remember him going through the bill. Right? And back then, because you had to pay more for long distance, they would list every number that was called long distance. And he was very jealous. He was crazy. And I'm sure I should say something nicer than that. He was mentally ill. I thought he was crazy. But he would ask my mom questions about the bill. And I guess he had liked some the answer she gave. I remember he hit her. He was a big guy. He was a bodybuilder. My mom had moved, so I had grown up in Newark until I was about 8. She moved to California. So I was now in North Hollywood, California. He was one of these Venice bodybuilders. We would have bodybuilding competition. He hit my mom. And this would begin a kind of period of abuse that was horrible. I mean, every several weeks it'd be something new. My mom would get a restraining order, another restraining order, he'd come right out, get bailed out by his parents, more upset. Like if people say, why does a woman stay? Why don't they leave? Because oftentimes when they try to leave, the system doesn't protect them. So we left. We were in a shelter for a while. We were on the couches of friends of my mom. We were going from house to house trying to escape this man. He didn't know where we were, because if he knew where we were, I probably wouldn't even be here right now. But he didn't know where we were, and I say we because I had a 6-month-old sister at the time as well, this is her father. We had different fathers. And November 25th, 1985, he didn't know where we were in terms of where we were staying, but he knew where my mom worked. So he waited at my mom's workplace. And I hadn't even been registered a new school because we had fled where we used to live. And when she walked into her job, he followed her in, and she didn't make it out. He shot and killed my mom in the workplace. And I tell this story, it's a horrible story, but it happens all the time. Just a few weeks ago, up the street in Montclair, we saw a girlfriend killed by the boyfriend. It happens all the time, and it's horrible. So anybody deal with this situation, any man you ever think about putting your hands on a woman, you know, man, you're a disgrace. You're an embarrassment. You should never do that. You have a disagreement, you have a conversation, you work it out. But anyway, I can speak more about that. I came back home. So after that, my grandmother, who had just lost her mom, and as a parent, it's unimaginable to lose your child. She had just lost my mom was her daughter. I said just lost her mom, just lost her daughter. My grandmother came and got me and my little sister. So we're back in North, back on Harding Terrace, and one of the first things she did was put me in the Boys and Girls Club in North on Hawthorne Avenue. At that time, we had the Southboard unit of the Boys and Girls Club. And she would put me there, because this is now 1985, 86, and we had issues with crack. Crack was big in Newark at that time. We didn't have the gangs that we have now, so that which is taking things to another level in terms of violence. Like we would have fights, Every once in a while there'd be a shooting, but not like it is in certain parts of the city now. But anyway, she put me in the Boys and Girls Club because she didn't want me to be a part of that. And we didn't have anybody in our family went to college. We didn't know what college was. College might have been Mars, like something you literally hear about, but we didn't know anybody who went there, so literally like Mars. And in any event, maybe about a year and a half after I would hang out in the Boys and Girls Club, this philanthropist named Ray Chambers, who's also from Newark, and did very well in Wall Street. He made a lot of money on Wall Street. He wanted to create a scholarship so that kids in Newark can have access to great schools, because we have many very good schools in Newark at that time and still today, but we have some that are not as good as they should be. So he wanted to create more opportunities for kids out of Newark. He created the scholarship. One of the counselors at the Boys and Girls Club came to me and said, I think you'd be great for that. And so she gave me some paperwork to fill out. I filled it out. Maybe a month or two later, they told me that the club is giving me a scholarship from Ray Chambers to go to Seton Hall Prep in West Orange. I didn't want to go to Seton Hall Prep in West Orange. It was all boys, and we had to wear those tan khaki pants. And no disrespect, some of y'all might still like those tan khaki pants. I didn't like them. We had to wear the little blazer with the little logo and whatnot on the lapel. And it was a Catholic school. They took us to Mass when they were exposing us to the school. I had never been to a Catholic Mass. I had never been to a church service where there was no call and response. There was no percussion. There were no drums. I was like, this is not the type of situation I'm used to. But my grandma said, that's what you're going to do. You're going to get on the 39, and you're going to go downtown. And then you're going to wait for the 73. I think it was a 21 as well. There too, the 24. So you take any, like pick whichever one you want. And you're going to go up to Northfield Avenue. You're going to get off, walk up Northfield Avenue. You're going to walk through those doors. You're going to do whatever those people tell you. And right here, you didn't, even though she was half my size. She knew how to use the belt, and she was going to bring repercussions. And long story short, I did that, and it changed my life. And I did very well in school, as I had continued to do. And as I got older, I started hearing about college, and the counseling started connecting me with college opportunities. And I would later go on to college and be the first in my family to go to college and law school and on and on. But I do this educational equity work, and I became a lawyer to do civil rights work because I knew my story was a story that had many challenges, but also many, many blessings. Right? The idea that I was at the Boys and Girls Club playing, and all of a sudden somebody taps me on the shoulder and connects me with a scholarship, so then I can get go to all these fancy places and get all these degrees and meet all these amazing people. I don't believe that was an accident. I definitely don't believe it was for me to just kind of go do my thing. I believe it was so that I could use this blessing to be a service to other people. So the reason I do educational equity is because you shouldn't have to be tapped on the shoulder at the Boys and Girls Club in 1987 to have access to a great education. I believe that should be a foundational right. And in this country, legally, it is one, but too many of our schools aren't operating at a level that will vindicate that right so that each and every one of you has access to great schools. So anyway, I had to say all that because that's the reason, right? That's the reason. And I appreciate that when you talk about authenticity, because when I think about anything I ever do, I think about the kids and families in my community. And is it right by them? And that means sometimes people who are strong and all of that and powerful, or think they're strong and powerful, you got to say no to them. Or you got to say yes to things that maybe some other people wouldn't say yes to if you really think that's going to create better educational opportunities for our young people. So anyway, that's the answer.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'll take a step back and just thank you for sharing your story. A big theme, a big part of this seminar class, no matter where we sit, is for the professionals that we bring in to provide their perspective and also talk about their journey in terms of how they started from A to B. But you also brought up two, I think, really important points that have a lot to do with a constant theme for this seminar. And one of which is about adversity and dealing with adversity. And while we all deal with adversity differently, we also have different stories and different challenges to overcome. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about the adversity that you just shared, but also how that experience has helped you address adversity in other ways later in your life.
Yeah, I think adversity is a beautiful thing. I think it's a great teacher. I think if you haven't been challenged, you're not going to grow, you're not going to learn. And for me, It was amazing. You know, I mean, to this day, things I've learned so much more, so much. Not just in terms of adversity, in terms of losing my mom, which was hard, but then my father also, he wasn't around much, which is something else I'm happy to talk about if anybody wants to know more about that. Really, my grandparents really were the foundation for me. But even just growing up the way I did, I mean, it was, I learned how to navigate. I learned how to code switch at an early age, right? I knew coming out of my house, when I would go to get to 39, I might have to put my Timbs on, and never had a book bag with 2 straps on. You had to navigate. Then when I go up the hill, take the Timbs off, have to put the little blazer on and all that, because I wasn't trying to wear that when I was coming home, but I had to do that back then. You learn how to navigate. I learned how to deal with all types of different people. I can, go back home where I'm very much at home, and I go up to the hill to the prep. I learned how to deal with different types of people, which helped me very much when I got out into the broader world. Like, it's a big world out there. And I also saw that how in my neighborhood on Harding Terrace, too many of our young people just weren't seeing much beyond the handful of blocks around our neighborhood, which isn't healthy, because it's a huge world out there and there's so much that people can learn. So I learned a lot from that. I learned toughness, right? I mean, when you lose your mom at 10, there's not a lot of things that's going to phase you, after that. And so it was, it was horrible. Still at almost 44 now, I mean, it's still something that you never get over. I mean, you're never over it, but you kind of learn how to move forward and navigate and, and try to, put one foot in front of the other. But almost any task I have now, like, I don't believe anything can happen, right? I don't believe anything's impossible. I don't believe, I just have a built-in, if I hear anybody say anything, well, I don't know if I can do that. I'm like, who told you can't do that? Why don't you believe you can do that? You can believe anything you put your mind to, and that's really connected to kind of some of the upbringing that, that I had. And, and it very much helps me, all these kind of assets. I also think sometimes with people from communities like mine, they'll talk about how hard it is, and, he grew up in the hood and all that, and black kid and all that, and that's garbage, right? I mean, there's so many assets, there's so many more assets that go along with the kind of upbringing I had, and I'm just very thankful for it, because it's really been a critical part of whatever success I've been able to have. Has been a critical part of it.
I also want to touch on something else that you hit on, which I think is another important theme of what we try to discuss in these sessions, and that's about responsibility. It's not so much just seeing what kind of jobs are out there. It's not just finding the pathway to get to that point. But it's also about, I think a lot of us, or a lot of those who have come to talk, we've also emphasized the importance of giving back, of being responsible, of not just sitting here and talking to students, but also being out there and getting involved in certain issues, such as what you've done with in terms of education reform. So talk a little bit about that value for us, and where that began, where you started feeling the importance of giving back and contributing, not just to our neighborhoods, but to our discourse, to our policy. Did that evolve just through your own compass? Did that involve through mentors? Talk a little bit about the importance of responsibility in the professional space.
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, definitely the foundation of all is so much has been given to me. And also, even to go to college, I got scholarships. So the Terrell Fund, which funds many important projects in New Jersey, I got a scholarship from them to go to college. So I would have, when I was in college, I'd have people sending me care packages from back home. I mean, sending toothpaste, sending towels, sending Def Jam comedy videos, which back then, that was just a VHS. Y'all probably know about VHS. That's before your time. They would send the VHS tapes. I could watch the old Def Jam back with Martin Lawrence or whatever. They send me Ron G. Ron G. Y'all too young. Y'all little yachty. Y'all know the type of stuff y'all listen to now. But we have Ron G. Right? He would create these mixtapes with all of the top artists from back in the early '90s and '80s, like Tribe Called Quest and Nas and Rakim, all these. So anyway, I had so many people help me every step of the way. Every step of the way. I mean, people when I got to college, where if I didn't have, $10, people who would give me $5, $10 to make it, to make it. And I'm sure some of y'all know $5, $10 when you're in college, that can go a long way. So just every step of the way, I had so many people help me on every level. So I've always had a deep commitment that you got to pay that forward. And each and every one of us in here, there's whether it's parents, whether it's family members, whether it's teachers, professors, a whole community of people have given us a lot to set us up for success. So when we do well, we got to be able to pay that forward to the next person. Then with my professional career, same thing. You know, when my first job, my second job as a lawyer during my second summer, I worked at a law firm called Wilmer Cutler and Pickering. And so this is my first time at a law firm. You heard my background. This is a very, what they call white shoe law firm. That means a very elite, you know, kind of Fortune 100 companies would hire this firm to provide legal services. And at some point, I'm happy to talk how I got there. And I got there because I worked my butt off in college and law school and I had the grades that got me there. So I'm happy to talk about that at some point too. And because I had done so well, you know, there was about 48 summer associates at this law firm. There were 3 people of color, 9 women, so it wasn't very diverse. So it was very much a culture shock. So one of the partners there kind of took me under his wing. Before I would submit a memo, he would review it, he would give me feedback to make sure everything was buttoned up. And he was an amazing professional mentor that even to this day that I consult with before I make decisions. When I came back home to New Jersey, I worked at the Gibbons Law Firm with a guy named Larry Lusberg and with a federal judge, same thing. They were great mentors for me, supported me the whole way. And so anyway, for me it's just kind of a thing of, I love to serve. One, that's just kind of how I am, but also, I don't know where I'd be without so many people giving to me. That to me is just part of who we ought to be in order to make sure that the next people who come behind us have access to great opportunity.
I want to jump in a little bit to your college experience and talking about what it was like attending Duke, and also the transition of coming from high school, Seton Hall, or Seton Prep, to over to Duke, and beyond just some of the touch points that you've already talked about as it relates to living expenses and dealing with, getting care packages and just dealing with life. What was it like to be in that environment? How did a college atmosphere, an institution, help you in your career path?
College, first of all, I had the most fun in my life in college. I don't know what y'all are doing, but I had some of the most fun. I mean, I love college. I loved college. And it was a big change. It was a big culture shock since I came from the Southwood of North to Duke, which is in Durham, North Carolina. And, not very many people from communities like mine. But there were many, there were some. And I just loved it. I loved, we went to school, we handled our business, so Duke was very much work hard, play hard, and that's, and I believe in that even to this day. So we handled our business first and foremost. But then, I didn't realize that, being in high school where, I played sports and I had classes and I had a job, so everything, like every minute was accounted for. So I still remember first getting to college and I had like 2 or 3 classes, maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. Those were like 3 or 4 days a week. And I remember getting out of class and it was sunny outside and I'm like, wow, I got all this, I have this extra time. Now it took me a minute to adjust. My first semester I didn't do as well as I should have because I didn't handle my time management well. So I had to make adjustments into my second semester and beyond to make sure that I was very disciplined. So you have your classes, book your time for your homework and your classwork, then you have plenty of time to meet people, hang out, do internships, build relationships, and all of that. But I had an amazing time in college. I met so many great people. When I got out into my professional career, a lot of these friends and relationships I made were people that I did business with, that we partnered with on projects. So think about a lot of people that you're building relationships with now 10, 15 years from now, you may be doing business with. So think about the type of reputation you want to have with, you're building your reputation even right now.
And when was it that you first discovered the law? I mean, was it something that kind of was instilled with you in an early age through your experiences in childhood, or was it at Duke where you just decided, I want to move forward and be a lawyer, and this is something that is my passion?
Yeah, once I got to college, I didn't know any lawyers, so I didn't know. I was a history major, and so I was very inspired by the civil rights practitioners of the past and what they did to create more opportunity for people like me that came behind. But I was open to many possibilities. So I spent my sophomore year, I worked in a business school, and I was thinking about going into the business world. And my attitude then was I want to make a lot of money, and then I want to help my community by having a lot of money, right? Because I knew in my community we didn't have the resources we always should have. So if I had more access to capital, I felt I could help it that way. I thought about changing it through the culture. So I spent my junior year as an intern at Vibe magazine with that, which at that point was a music, I mean, it went out of business several years ago. But at that point, it was a pretty prominent music and culture magazine. And at that point, I thought I wanted to maybe shape what was happening through music and through culture. I also spent that summer working with Congressman Payne, Sr., who passed away. Now his son is the congressman. I was an intern for him. And basically, I was thinking, I want to get involved in law and politics. And basically, at the end of all of that process, I decided law and politics, I thought, was both a great match. I felt was the best match for me in terms of the skills I thought I had and the impact I wanted to have in the community. So that's when I decided to go to law school, and then I kind of went from there. Now I really don't practice that much. I mean, I practiced about 15, 16 years where I litigated cases. Now I'm working more in the advocacy policy space because I feel I can have more impact in a faster time that way. But really, law and jumping into that career occurred for me when I was in college. I explored different opportunities.
And we're going to open this up in just a few minutes, but there are a few more questions I just want to make sure that we address and we get to. I think when you're talking about the work, and you're talking about all these great experiences that you had in terms of that had a tremendous effect on your professional development, the internships, college, obviously the professional accolades. You know, another theme that we've talked a lot about in these sessions is the idea, you can frame it a lot of different ways, being blessed, being lucky, but I think in a lot of cases, what we've tried to talk about is how we, as individuals, how we can put ourselves in the position of not just being in the arena, but creating that opportunity for ourselves. Because my experience, and one of the things that we've talked a lot about, in my experience, opportunities don't really come to us. We have to fight for them. We have to ask for them. We have to have people who will mentor and help us. We can't do it ourselves. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about your experience, if you agree with that, and how important or not important that might be as we look to develop our skill sets later in life.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you have to be prepared. So when opportunities arise, that you can seize them. So when we talk about lucky, and I do feel blessed, but at the same time, I was in the position to receive the blessing because I was prepared. So while I think it's unbelievably unjust that someone like me had to be touched by somebody at the Boys and Girls Club, the reason that Ms. Korn, who's my counsel at the time, decided to reach out to me was because I prepared myself by doing very well academically up to that point. And I can go, I can go all the way down the line. Every opportunity, someone helped me, and that's very important. They create an opportunity, but I was in a position to be helped because I did everything I could under my control to put myself in that position. I think that means for you, you got to destroy while you're here. Like you should have a mindset that when I graduate from Bloomfield, the dean I just met, he's gonna rename a hall after me by the time I'm done with this place. I'm killing this, right? Every class I'm killing. Every professor I come into, I want to be in the Hall of Fame. When they think about a great student, I want them to see my face, my image, right? Every internship, I'm killing that, right? Anything you touch, I'm killing that. Every relationship, I'm killing that. I want this person I touched today to say, this person was one of the nicest, kindest, most honest, most amazing people I've ever met, right? Every opportunity you can, you want to squeeze everything out of it because that's going to lead to something for you. Whatever your dreams are, it's going to help. It's going to create ripples in the universe that'll then lead to changes that'll then help propel you to where you want to be. So there's no shortcuts for that. So that when you got that exam coming, you got that paper, and you're tired and don't want to do it, and people want to go out, it's like I'm gonna come see you after I handle this. I'm gonna handle this first. So I'm not saying don't hang out. That's an important part of life of being balanced. But I'm gonna handle this first. I'm gonna kill this first. I'm gonna exhaust everything I can do here first. Then I'm gonna come to that, right? And if you do that, you're gonna be fine. But on the other hand, if you don't, and that's part of responsibility, if you don't, You know, I'm gonna go hit that club first, I wanna go do something else first, or, you know, I'm gonna sleep my way through the professor's class, I'm gonna be on Facebook, I'm gonna be on Instagram while they're teaching, right? Or I'm gonna be on the phone when there could be a relationship. Then you gotta look in the mirror when opportunities don't present themselves.
So I want to hyper-focus what you just said a little bit to the courtroom. And I know you don't do trial work the way you used to, but I've been lucky enough to observe you in a courtroom, and I say this to everyone that frankly the best lawyer I've ever seen is Shavar Jeffries. And I want to get a sense of taking what you just said and kind of hyper-focusing that craft, whether it be on the legal side, whether it be filmmaking, whatever it might be. What were the steps that you took to take your passion, to take your job, and not just simply work harder than everyone else, but there must have been something beyond that to really become the kind of lawyer that you were. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the law in particular, well, I think it's really similar to many other professions, but the law, attention to detail is everything in the law. And everything. Understanding what people's legal rights are. There's many hundreds of cases oftentimes on any particular legal claim. A legal claim is just something you have a legal right to something, and then you have a claim to this that anyone violates your right to that something. What that something is can change depending upon how specific and how thorough you are in terms of researching the law. So the first step is, even to know what the law says in any particular example, you have to be very thorough and very diligent. It's very easy to stop. You know, and the same when you're investigating the facts. So for example, someone comes in and says, I don't know, you pick an issue. I let someone borrow, $5,000, they're supposed to pay me back, they didn't. The other person says, no, I didn't, this was a gift. She told me I can have that money. The best lawyers will find any info, they're going to get your text messages, they're going to get emails, they're going to get documents. They're going to talk to all of the witnesses. They're going to talk to other people that the witness identifies who may have relevant information, and they're not going to stop, right? Mediocre lawyers stop. Well, I've talked to 2 or 3 people, I think that's enough. I've read 1 year's worth of emails, I don't think I need to go back to a second year. I've looked at 7 cases, and even though I have a list here that says there's another 25 cases that might be relevant to the issue, I think that's enough, right? That's mediocrity, right? Same with you. Hey, you know what, I put in 30 minutes on this assignment, I think that's enough, right? The syllabus has, extra readings, I don't need to do that extra, I ain't worried about that extra, I ain't got time for that extra. Right, so then you're going to have, it's funny, I just talked to my daughter the other day, because my daughter, she's 12 now. And, she says she wants to do certain type of things, and I took her on a trip, and because of my travels, I have enough miles now where we get, we have the special, because, everything is stratified, which I think is not a good thing, but everything is stratified, right? So you got enough miles, you get a whole different experience. We got to the airport late, because I got all these miles now, we got the whole special line, no one's in line. If you don't have any miles, the line was, you're going to sit there for 45 minutes. And I use this up to with my baby girl to say, look, if you want to keep cutting corners in class, you're going to be standing in that line right over there. See that line, you're going to be standing there for 45 minutes, and we'll see when you get in here. You want to handle your business, you can come walk through over here, right? Maybe the world shouldn't be like that way. The world is the way it is. So the choice is yours. But to be a great lawyer, it's all about attention to detail, right? And I've been trained to be relentless about that. Like, I've been trained by people who were the best as well, and they don't tolerate anything. I'm talking about if you use a comma between 2 independent clauses, they would act like the world is about to come to an end, right? And that's something that's really, in some other spaces, minor, but when you get over into, I would want you to be at that level, where things that other people think are minor, that's major to me. Because everything when it comes to my professionalism, everything when it comes to my reputation for excellence, everything matters to me, right? So I want to be 100%, I'm not trying to be 99. And even beyond that, it shouldn't just matter to you, although it should matter to you. When you're a lawyer or in any type of service position, it matters for your clients, right? Because that case you take off, that case you don't read, That witness you don't talk to, somebody could lose their house, somebody could lose their life savings. I do civil rights cases, so I've done everything from violence against women. You can imagine why I do stuff like that. That can maybe mean that restraining order doesn't get enforced. I've done cases where elderly people have been defrauded out their house. Maybe people don't get their house back. So you should never want to cut any corners for yourself first and foremost, even more so if you're in a service business where your job is to serve other people.
Yeah, and I think also relating that to a job search, to finding employment after college, there's a level of persistence there that you're talking about, which I think is relatable not just to once you have a career, but getting a career. You know, looking under that every rock, asking people for help and for assistance. That persistence level, I think, is also something that you're getting at, which is a huge import to those of us who are still in college and looking beyond. I want to just dip into this real quick because I think obviously there's going to be a lot of questions, but I also wanted to talk a little bit to provide the audience with the background. So we were talking a little bit about challenges, facing them, how they affect us later in life. You ran an extraordinarily energized campaign plan. You lost by literally handfuls of votes. Myself included, we were disappointed that at that end result. However, that end result also put you in the position that you're in today, which is running, one of the most important education organizations in the country, and being able to contribute on a much broader level than even the mayor of Newark. Having said that, what was that experience like, and how did, not to get too deep, but how did you persevere through that and create a new vision for yourself, and frankly, even a larger vision for yourself?
Yes, that was a wonderful, that was a wonderful experience. So, I talked about my background in Newark. And so in 2010, I ran for the school board in Newark. And because, education has been everything for me. I also, so before that, I was the founder of a charter school network in Newark. So everybody knows about KIPP, New Jersey, and Newark. I was the founding board chairperson for KIPP, New Jersey. And I saw how our school, while imperfect, was able to do a lot of great things for young people in the city. So I wanted to run for the traditional public school district and see if I could be a part of helping the traditional public school to system to provide even better services to kids. So I ran for the school board. I won. I became the president of the school board in 2010, and that was a tremendous experience. We had a lot of issues going on. We had the Zuckerberg monies come in, so there was a lot of attention on what was happening in the district. There were some good initiatives that I felt moved the needle for kids. There were some that I disagreed with and I didn't think were that great. So we had a lot of back and forth there. So I ran for mayor after that. So I served on the board for 3 years and I ran for mayor. So from 2003, so I ran for almost 20 months. So from the end of 2012, I started raising money. You have to raise a lot of money to run for these offices, and I'm happy everybody wants to know about that. Interesting enough, a lot of the relations I had in college and law school that I talked about earlier, those were some of the first people to invest in me when I wanted to run for mayor. But 2013 and 14, I'm knocking on doors, and when I started, people were like, Shavar, no one knows you. How you think you're going to run? Nobody knows you. You're in these courtrooms all the time. People in the community don't know you like that, which was true because I'm in courtrooms, right? In order to do everything I said to win my cases, and I appreciate that because I take the utmost in pride that when I walk into these courtrooms, I represent my clients, and all of my clients were people who had no one else to fight for them, either children, women facing violence. I represent immigrants facing deportation. I represent the elderly people who were being defrauded out of their homes, working people just trying to make ends meet. I had the utmost pride that when I walk into this courtroom, I know everything that relates to their issue. And if we don't win, that means there was no human being on this planet that would have won. Because of all that, that means I'm not in the community kind of out, as an activist. And so the person I was running against, Mayor Baraka, to his credit, and which I have the utmost respect for, he chose to bring transformation to our community through community activism, which is very, very important and very needed. These are just two different ways of doing it. But in doing it that way, more people kind of know you. So anyway, they're like, yeah, Shavar, you're not gonna get more than 4%, no one knows you, how you gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, I believe that. I believe we can do it. And, and it was a long campaign, it was challenging. Maybe 4 or 5 months out from the election, we started building more and more traction. And then maybe 2 months out from the election, we would have more traction. So then it really was like a war, where I would knock on doors, and it was very bizarre, because you go to one door and they think you're the best thing ever, and if we elect you, everything's going to change. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not Jesus here, and I'm one person trying to make a difference. Because when things don't change immediately, you're going to be cussing me out. No, we're going to try to do some things. I think we can make progress, but don't. But then you go to the next door, then you're the worst thing, right? So you got one door, you're the Messiah and all that, which you're not that. Then the next door, you're the worst. You're the evil person. Why all these white, and then we got the racial politics, why all these white people from California writing checks? I'm like, oh, I played basketball with them at Duke in 1994. Ain't no conspiracy. We just played ball. We're on the quad hanging out, and we just like a brother. And, well, yeah, why they in Beverly Hills? Why they gonna care about something you got to do with all that type of stuff? And anyway, it was an aggressive campaign. I had a lot of fun. It was amazing to meet so many beautiful Norkers who just love the city of all backgrounds. I mean, I campaigned in every ward of the city. And what I loved the most about it was everybody, what we all should know already. Sometime in this country, sometime we can forget it. Everybody's the same. Everybody wants the same thing. I go to Mount Prospect in North Ward. I might speak to a Puerto Rican immigrant. I'm like, what you looking for? I want a safe street for my kids. I want to send my babies to a good school. I'm looking for a decent job, put food on the table. I want a roof over my head, and I want to be able to access health care when I'm sick. I go to the black folk in the South Ward. What you looking for? Same 5 things. I go to the Portuguese and Brazil, the East Ward. What you looking for? Same 5 things. I go up in the West Ward, speak to a Ghanaian immigrant or Nigerian. What you looking for? The same thing. Speak to some of my Italian folks on the other side of Verona Ave over there. Same 5 things. But then, what's the problem? Then everybody's doing this. Everybody's blaming the others. Black people blaming the white people, the Puerto Ricans blaming the Dominicans, the Ghanaians blaming the Nigerians. Everybody blaming everybody else, and everybody in the same boat. And so it helped reinforce to me how beautiful human beings are, and that we all want the same thing. But also reminded me that if we don't spend enough time talking with each other, and we don't spend enough time in proximity with one another, we'll allow foolishness to cause us to not believe and cause us to perceive differences that oftentimes do not exist at all. Everybody's fundamentally the same. And so that was a beautiful part, but also disappointing, because there are a lot of these ethnic politics that were played in the campaign too. And so that part was disappointing, because that causes the people to see divisions that really don't exist. Anyway, after the campaign, I took time to decompress. It was a challenge too, because I'm married with 2 children. And we don't have a lot of, in Newark, we don't have a lot of people with.
I just want to add that it was also a very close election, though, too.
Yeah, it was close. So I started, they said I wasn't going to get more than 5%. I ended up with 46%. So that's pretty far from 5. And I had the most votes of any first-time municipal candidate in a long time. Because part of it, which is legitimate, people do have to get to know you. And because as a lawyer, I did many things. That meant a lot, not everyone in the community knew who I was. And I definitely planned at some point to run again. But I have 2 kids, I have a wife, and what it was is you're out a lot. I mean, you're not with your family a lot. And I didn't have my father, as I talked about briefly. I am not going to have my kids raised and not having their father having my hands on them and helping support them, develop them. So afterwards, they're like, Dad, I don't even want to hear you about you running for any office until we get closer to college. And I was like, done. Right, done. And so that's why I'm leaning in these other areas now and support candidates throughout the country who are going to fight for kids and fight for equity. And then at some point, if it's God's will, I'll jump back in myself.
So on that point, I'm going to open up to questions. I'm going to hand someone over my microphone and pass it around. If anyone wants to start off,
my name is Destiny. I want to become a civil rights attorney, so I want to know what advice you have for me in college, law school, and beyond.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's why I did. So I'm happy to help you any way I can there. I mean, number one is do the best. So what year are you now?
I'm a sophomore. Okay.
So number one now is kill these grades. Kill it. Right, as smart as I know you are, kill it. right? You know, A pluses every class, hundreds every class, as smart as you are, that shouldn't even be a problem for you, right? Put in your work, stay organized, kill that. Then I would say during the summers, I'd probably say, it's not necessary, but it'd probably be a good idea if you know, maybe intern in a legal, it's not necessary at all. So if there's other interests you have, feel free to do that. Because it's also, because it's not one path, right? So feel free to, it's very important, I believe, for you to make sure that your path reflects you, it reflects what you care about. So if you're interested in other things, try those things too. I would also recommend if you can take some courses that involve rigorous critical thinking, critical analysis, and writing, right? Because the law is all about critical thinking. You know, major premise, minor premise, conclusion. It's really like a big math problem, but it's about creative thinking and creative analysis. So whether it's you know, high level, it really can be any humanities type courses. You know, high level history courses, high level, you know, literature courses, anything where there's deep critical analysis in writing, because you know, one of probably the most important currency an effective lawyer will have is writing. So I would say knock these grades out. That's number one. You know, consistent with other interests, try to take you know, as many courses that require you to write in a very critical way and to really think deeply and critically as possible. And then during the summers, try different things. You know, maybe get into an office and see what it's like. And then after that, then we'll stay in touch. And when you're ready to apply, when it's time to take the LSAT, definitely take a prep course. Because a lot of the peers you'll be competing with, it's just kind of matter of course. They'll take the LSAT prep course. Definitely do that. If you know, if for some reason you can't, and then they have, and some people don't do it because they feel they can't afford it, but they have fee waivers and other opportunities to do that. So definitely do that, and then you're going to be off to the races.
Was academic success something that always stood, was something that was with you? Was that a skill set that you developed? Did it become easier, or were there things that you learned to do to achieve that?
You know, I learned I had to work hard. You know, so in elementary school is much easier. High school, you know, I would say it was easy, but I did very well. I put in a reasonable amount of work. When I got to college, I became too overconfident, and I thought I could just coast. And my first semester, I didn't do as well as I should have, because, like I said, my time management wasn't buttoned up. And you know, in between classes, I'm freestyling on the quad, and all, and playing basketball, and doing any freestylers. Okay, y'all. Okay. I'm rusty now. I'm rusty. I'm 20 years out of that. So I'm rusty now. But 92, 93, 94, I'd have been a problem for you. 92, 93, 94. That's a long time ago. But then I realized I had to make an adjustment. My first semester I did okay, but not up to the standards I had set for myself. So I had to make an adjustment and rechange my time management. Where, like I said, that I had my classes, then right after classes I would book my time for my coursework, so doing my homework and my classwork, then freestyle, right? So I would still do that, but it was the last thing. So that was with the leftover time I had. But I made sure I first handled my business because that was first and foremost. So once I did that, then same with law school. Graduate school, so you want to be lawyer even more so. I mean, you want to develop these habits now, because in law school there's so much more material, right? And so you want to right now develop the right habits where you have to prepare for class, hit class, kill class. After class, I gotta make sure I understood what happened in that class and get ready for the next class. Be very disciplined with that. Be a machine with that. Like, you want to have habits where you're a machine. Aristotle said, we are what we do repeatedly, so excellence is a habit. So really you just want your habits to be habits of excellence. So do that every time. Then once you've done all that, now I can go hang out, I can do my thing, right? Because you want to be well-rounded, but you want to handle your business first. So what helped me was building those habits, and I was able to.
So Shavar said at the beginning when we were speaking that we'll be able to go over time. We're already an hour in, but luckily we have them for a little bit longer, and I know there could be other questions. So if anyone else has a question, the mic is right there. We can pass it over to you.
Hi, my name is Janae Plaza. I just wanted to ask you how you feel about charter schools, because I went to one. So I wanted to know how you felt about it, because I know you said you were part of the board for one.
Okay. Which school did you go to?
Roberts Unit Academy.
I believe that, so charter schools, I think many of them are very good, some aren't that good. I mean, because at the end of the day, a charter school just is a framework that enables leaders to create their own public school, right? So that's what people should always remember. It just means that what the government has done, because traditionally, before we had charter schools, the only public schools we would have would be those run by your local school board. And there's a lot of benefits of that. There's potentially some challenges. For example, in our city, and if you haven't read this book called Inside Newark, there's a chapter in that book called Pity the Children, written by Robert Kerford, who's one of the great thinkers and writers about many things, including the history of Newark ever. And what he talks about in that chapter is something I saw, because I was the founding board president of a charter school and the board president of the district. And I saw in the district, and we have many amazing school leaders, many amazing school teachers, but there's a lot of politics that gets involved too. There's a lot of people who call and they want jobs for people that they're connected to politically. And they have an argument as to why they think they're also great academically, but there's also the relational aspects of it as well. So anyway, long story short, I think it's a very good thing for parents to be able to have more power to decide what's going to happen with their baby. Because if you don't, outside of the charter school context, what you have is, and this gets controversial with some people, not for me, what you have is, if you're a low-income family like mine, the only school option you have is the one in your neighborhood. No matter what's been going on in that school for however long it's been going on, right? Whereas if you have money, you can move to the suburbs. If you have money and don't move to the suburbs, you can put your kid in a private school. If you don't have money and don't move to the suburbs, but you know people politically, you can make calls and say, even though my kid may not be well in science, I need my kid to be in science high school. Or can you help my kid get into arts? Or even though I live in one ward of the city, can I get my child into Harriet Tubman, which traditionally was a better school? I would get those calls. And I would get myself into trouble politically because I was an odd fish. So even though I won and I had all these votes, normally people who ran for the school board and office in places like Newark come through the political machine. I was an odd duck because when people would call me, I say, hell no, I ain't making no. There's a process, right? If you don't live in that neighborhood, you can't go to that school. Oh, but I helped you get elected. I was like, okay, but if you helped me get elected, then you heard what I ran on, which was opportunity for all. You didn't hear me run saying, if you call me, I'm going to hook you up because you knocked on the door. You heard me say, I'm going to fight to do what I think is best for all. So I would say that, but then, and that might sound all good, but then 2 days later, I got political repercussions to deal with. I got people who want to do other things to make it hard for the agenda we're trying to push because I didn't help their brother and their sister and their cousin get into a school that they didn't earn their way into, and they didn't have a right to. So I'm a strong believer that the parent should make the decision. So if your parent thinks, if your family thinks Robert Treat is best for you, they should make that decision. Who am I to say no? What part of North did you live in?
I lived in North.
And what would have been your elementary school if you didn't go to Robert Treat, based on your neighborhood?
I would have went to First Avenue.
Yeah, at First Avenue, we've had a lot of changes at First Avenue, right? I mean, First Ave, in that part, Rich Street has been traditionally good, but that's over, more to the, more going north, right? The First Ave, we've had, and during my time on the board, we had multiple principals at First Ave. That's another issue we have. It's hard to keep principals in place. So many of our schools, matter of fact, we had 76 schools when I was elected to the school board. In my 3 years, 55 of them had new principals within the 3 years I was on the school board. It's hard to sustain things that way. So anyway, I believe that the charter school is a very important option for families to have because it also forces everyone to focus more on kids and families than politics. Because what will happen toward the end of my term, as the charter schools grew, in the district, we're able to push against some of these traditions because it hurt the district's capacity to do well. So for example, when I was getting ready to leave the board, we had a debate with our teachers around extended learning time. Because when I first got elected to the board, the school days were 8:20 to 2:50. Now the 8:20 to 2:50 model was created for a farming-based economy where oftentimes, over 130 years ago, kids after school have to go work on the farms. Ain't too many farms around here, right now. But the system was structured that way, and then the union contract limited the day to that amount. No matter the fact that most parents were still working at 5 o'clock. So kids, are going home by themselves. Many of the charter schools will start from scratch and we're going to have a longer school day because we think that's best for kids. So they go to 4:30, 5 o'clock. Like Robert Treat is one of those. And you may not have always liked that, right? But what happened was when I was going to leave the board, we were able to get more time. Still not everything we wanted because families were leaving the district because they felt the charters were a better option. So now I created pressure. So when I first got to the board, I would hear, well, we're not going past 250 unless we get this and that and the other thing in terms of increased revenue that we didn't have. When I left, we were able to say, well, if y'all want to go a little bit longer, we can provide some additional money, but not everything you used to want. If you don't allow us to extend the day and provide a better service that the families want, y'all gonna be laid off because the families are leaving. And so that becomes very disruptive and it creates a lot of controversy. I personally like it and think it's good controversy because now it's like, you want to serve the child or not? You want to serve the family or not? If you don't, you might not be here. You might not have a job. I believe that pressure is what we should have because what we had, as Bob Kirkman talked about for many decades, was everyone comfortable, no one's job being threatened, everyone's good, but we're seeing 1 in 10 children ready for college and ready for careers, which is a disaster given where the labor market is going nowadays.
Questions? Y'all in here.
How you doing? My name is Marquez. You spoke on losing your mother at a young age, not having your father in your life. So what motivated you to keep on going in life?
That's great. I mean, first my grandmother. My grandmother was an amazing human being. I mean, she was tough, she was strong, and she was a former educator too, so she was definitely passionate about educational opportunity, and she just always pushed me, and she just was always about, hey, we've been through a lot. So my mom was her daughter, so she lost her daughter, and so she, we didn't know about therapy, we didn't know about counseling. I know we needed it, but so she was still dealing with that. But she was just always pushing us, and she created a safe environment with the right type of values. And my grandfather was the same, so he was huge for me. I would say my people at the Boys and Girls Club, they were really big too. They really pushed. When I had tough days or didn't know what I should do or how we would make it, they would be there to be very supportive. Also. And then my aunt, who kind of stepped in and became almost like a second mom after I lost my mom, she really pushed me too. So I thank God for them, because without them, I don't know where I would have ended up.
How you doing? My name's Sean Andrews. So in college, you typically you're on your own, and you're already dealing with stress from school. On top of that, you have stress with life, whether it be financial or death and families and sickness. How did you manage?
Yeah, that was tough too. I mean, that I had the financial piece, right? Because every time, I remember beginning every semester going into financial aid, just saying, hey, I need y'all to help me out. Find something, find money somewhere, and they did. Every step of the way. So that was great. I had many things going on in my household. My sister, I told you what, so my sister's father was going to kill her mother. I'm 10 years older than her. So when I was in college, she was still back home. And I was kind of like big brother, uncle, dad for her. And so when I left, I didn't realize it was very difficult for her because, I was all those things, for her. So she had many issues. I had to come back sometime and help out. And that wasn't easy because I needed to handle my business. So that's where after my first semester, I didn't do it as well as I should have. My second semester, that's where I got very disciplined about my calendar. And I highly recommend that. Be very disciplined about your calendar, about your time. Because there's a lot of things you can get back. The one thing you cannot get back is time. Also, I had to say to my grandmother, because my sister was only 7 years old when I went to college, and she's 10 years younger than me as I went through the years in college. I had to say to my grandmother too, because once I was had to be disciplined, and it's a conversation you may have to have, during my work time, I gotta work. Because I had these scholarships to get me here, which were an amazing blessing, and for certain books, I had to spend my own money on top of that. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If we can do this right, many of the issues we're dealing with, which were financial and otherwise, we'll be in a better position to address. But if I mess this up now, and I end up having to drop out and missing this opportunity, and I got to come back home, at that time, I mean, minimum wage is higher now, making $7, $8, $9 an hour because I didn't seize this. We're going to be worse off for a long period of time. So when I'm in work time, so I have my scheduled time outside of work. So after I go to class, after I do my work, then I can lean in on some other things. If I'm over here, I got to handle this, right? And so she respected that. I mean, it took some time. I first hear, well, I raised you. How you going to tell me I only can talk to you when I'm, how you going to do that? You can't tell your grandma all that, so I would hear all that. I have to say nanny, right? That's my grandma said, nanny, I love you to death. I got to hit this right now. This stuff is hard because she's back in North. She's not understanding all this biochemistry and organic chemistry and all this stuff. And I mean, this stuff was hard stuff. So I was like, no, I got to handle that, then come that. So I would highly urge that because I wouldn't be surprised if many of you had many people pulling on you. You had obligations outside of school. Those will always be there, but you don't get another opportunity. You can, I mean, let me not say that. You can always recover from anything. Why do you want to have to spend more time and money and energy and resource recovery? Handle your business now. Be unapologetic about controlling your calendar. Build in time for your personal and family responsibilities. Make sure you do that after you handle your business. Because if you handle your business for these few years, the sky's going to be the limit.
Any other questions? Yeah? Here, I'll just grab the mic back real quick.
This gentleman.
How'd you deal with people pulling you back? Did you have to some people go? I know you were hours away from home. I'm from Camden, so I'm hours away from home, and I always have to deal with constant tug and pull. How did you maintain that focus?
That's another great question. I think, I did have to let some people go. I had to let people go if they didn't share. If they didn't share the vision I had for myself and for them. There were some people who couldn't get past. There's some people who I love dearly who couldn't imagine a set of possibilities beyond what was happening on our block at the time, and wanted to have me wanted to limit me to that. So I would try to talk to them about, because I had seen more, because I've been blessed to see more, right? Because I didn't earn it really, but these opportunities came my way. So I would try to talk to them about, hey, there's more for us than just what we're doing on the block, and they couldn't see that. And it's difficult, but I would encourage you, if there's anybody in your life who is not supporting you to fulfill your dreams and to do so in a way that's positive and productive, for not only yourself, but for your family and your community, and you've tried to get them to see something broader, you may have to cut some people off, right? Because, unfortunately, some people could be in your life for a season, right? Because not everyone will always, some people can't, like I say, see beyond the limits of their own experience, and that can cause them to want to limit you and keep you in a certain type of place, and you don't want to have that, right? You have to, you're here, you have a golden opportunity. You're at a tremendous college where you have access to all type of opportunities to learn. You need people in your life who are cheering for you and rooting for you, right? And who are pushing you into that. You need people in your life who the second you're like, well, I don't know if I can do this or whatever. Nah, you got this. Let's go get it, right? We got you, right? We want you. If you got people like, man, why are you up there doing all that? You don't need to do all that. You got to cut that off, right? Because that type of energy is not going to be productive for you. It's not going to be constructive for you. I definitely had that, and it wasn't easy. I mean, I had one friend in particular I'm thinking about right now. We grew up together. We grew up playing sports in the community together. We grew up in the Boys and Girls Club together. He made some different choices, and he didn't. That was on him. I mean, I did have these opportunities, but he also didn't put himself in a position to receive opportunities. I had an opportunity to get an internship after my sophomore year in college. And the long story short, I mean, he wanted me to come back home and do some other things, and I know tell where I'd be if I went that way. So anybody who's not supporting your growth and development, you gotta, at this stage of life, you gotta cut them off, because that's not gonna help you get to where you gotta get.
What if it's family?
If it's family, I mean, is it really family if they're not, supporting your development and cultivation? I mean, I've had that too, sadly, right? I mean, I have family members, and when I say cut them off, I mean, so I have family members that I can't spend a lot of time with. Now, I help them in every way I can, right, in terms of, but I have some family members who, so I don't want to call my family members haters, because that to me, that's too, that's too colloquial, that's too simplistic and too harsh. So look, the bottom line, if anybody loves you, all they want is the best for you. If they don't love you, if they say they love you, but the things they're saying to you or the way in which they're engaging with you is in such a way that's not designed to push you into your future and to develop you, that's not really love. And first have conversations, right? So just don't cut without conversation, have conversations, right? Hey, I'm trying to go play. I'm here at Bloomfield. I'm trying to make things happen for myself, my family, my community. Like, never be selfish with it. Like, I would hope everything you do is not only for yourself, but you want to serve other people, right? Because there are some people who will get an opportunity and don't look back. And I think that's dishonorable, disrespectful, right? But, you got to have people that whatever your dreams are, and if they're family, that's what they're going to do. If you have a blood, not everybody who's related to you by blood is your family. Right? And so you may have some people you're related to by blood, but that's not really your family in terms of supporting your cultivation and development. And if there's people who you have blood relations with and they're not supporting your growth, and if you try to get them to see that, you're going to have to cut them off. Otherwise, you're not going to get to where you want to be.
Any other questions from the audience? Anyone wants to contribute or add? So I'll just end today with a special thanks to Shavar for sharing his story, for providing us all with great perspective and advice, and really reflecting the true values and goals of the seminar. I mean, this has been extraordinarily rewarding to listen to, and we're so thankful that you come to the college and to meet with all of us. And I think, as is the case with all our guests, this is a resource for our students, and we appreciate you putting yourself out there and making yourself available. And I would encourage the students that are here to grab a little bit of time with Shavar now while he's here, and certainly for future occasions. That's why we're doing this, is to bring people, to bring leaders like Shavar onto campus to ensure that what they've learned, their perspective is shared and pushed forward. So thanks all for coming, and thank you for Shavar.
Can you guys make sure you do your evaluations, and if you want to get entered for the rest?